Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundless success to join today. Let's get you to the next level.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. Host Jeff Sherman, along with the fully recovered Dr. Eric Lopkin. Been a couple weeks, so with that in mind, sometimes a negative can become a positive because now we can have a 2-week perspective. Dr. Lopkin, the first 2 weeks of the Donald, your thoughts, and let's also compare that to 2016. Go ahead.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks have been a whirlwind. I was joking about this earlier, but there are a number of other reporters that I've spoken to who have all been making the same comment. We want to sign a petition to get Donald Trump to take a day off because we haven't had to work this hard in 4 years covering the news. Donald Trump has done more in 2
let's
weeks.
Put that in perspective. Let's put that in perspective. You could compartmentalize the Biden all within what, a month? The 4 years could go in a month.
Donald Trump has done more in the last 2 weeks than Biden did in 4 years. And no exaggeration on this, Trump has taken more questions from the press in the 22 days he's been in office than Biden did, including the press secretary, in the first year.
Yeah, I think, we talked about it, and we're not going to spend any time on this, the Biden legacy, that's kaput. But the Biden legacy does tie in to how the Democratic Party is looking in the polls and with people, because he's tied to it. They see a vibrant, take charge alpha male, and then you look at all the Democrats, which was articulated by their selection get-together for the new head of the DNC. And I don't smoke pot anymore, but if I did, I think I might have a heart attack. I'd be laughing so hard. Your thoughts?
Yeah,
you couldn't make it up.
No, the DNC election was absolutely mind-boggling. They doubled down on everything that the American people just told them we don't want. They still seem to think that their problem was messaging, that they didn't get their message across effectively. No, their message came across loud and clear. It's their policies and their focus that nobody wanted. And now you've got high-ranking Democrats who are saying point blank, we have no leadership. The Democratic Party has nobody to turn to, no leaders. You saw the New York Times talk about this. The New Yorker wrote about the fact that there's no Democratic leadership. So they're even losing the left-wing media over all of this.
Yeah, and their approval rating of the Democratic Party is right along there with Joe Biden, 37%, the lowest in like 20-something years.
Yeah, Quinnipiac did a national poll and found only 37% of Americans have a favorable view of the Democratic Party. And we've talked about this before, but we should point it out that the Quinnipiac poll swings to the left, which means it's probably closer to 30 to 31% positive.
and going down. I mean, looking at their messaging, the messengers, it's just a train wreck. They might, and this is Bill Maher. This is not me. They may, and he had a very accurate historical perspective that nothing is forever. The Whig Party was a
Yep.
very strong party. It's gone. It's a footnote in history books. The way they're going, because I think they're like alcoholics. An alcoholic would obviously know that drinking isn't good for them, but can't help it. I don't think they can help themselves. And that's my honest assessment. I think
Well,
they
you
will
know,
go down with the Titanic.
being an alcoholic would explain Chuck Schumer's rants about beer and avocados and guacamole the other day. And Jon Stewart was absolutely brilliant, ripping Chuck Schumer to shreds, where he actually said to the Democratic Party, please stop sending out Chuck Schumer. Stop letting him
Oh,
talk.
I'm so glad you said that because you juxtapose him and other Republican alpha males and alpha females, right? And then you get this nebbish, to use a Yiddish word, just the most what alpha B male, just an elitist, out of touch. It's not good. And I agree with Jon Stewart. And I actually disagree with him in one way because I want him out there more. It's just
Well, you know,
unbelievable. I mean,
if
you
you
can't
take
make
a
it up.
look, yeah, if you take a look at the current state of the Democrats who are out there screaming their heads off, it does start to make a certain amount of sense because for 12 years, the Democrats have been anti-male, toxic masculinity, and it's
Yes.
bad to be a man. And now you see why, because they don't have any real men in the party. And you start to understand why they say, well, we can't define what a woman is. Because unless you take this nebulous definition and say, well, anybody can be a woman, that's the only way to make Elizabeth Warren and Rosa DeLauro look female.
Well done. Yes. Yes. If you're dating them, then you certainly have more than enough testosterone because yikes. And speaking of yikes, it looks like all of Trump's appointees or potential cabinet appointees are going to go through. But that also, you talk about the decline of the Democratic Party, that was not a good look. Screaming out of like almost out of their minds people, Elizabeth Warren, others. Your thoughts? Not a good
No,
look.
the Democrats came out of the nomination process looking very bad because their entire strategy, and they've said this point blank, this isn't me making this up. They've said, we just want to stall this as long as possible because they know they have no power. And it is absolutely amazing. First of all, even Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr., who were the most problematic of all of, and Pete Hegseth, who was the most problematic of all of the nominees, they're all sailing through. And it looks like RFK and Tulsi Gabbard will also have some Democratic support. And most of the nominees have all had at least a few Democrats supporting them.
Yes, well, not all, not in the committee because I think Gabbard and RFK were
Right.
down party lines. But yes, in the general
In
voting,
the
and you have
general.
to look at that, Doctor. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. But that's part of the committees are so uber liberal that they can't help themselves. So, it was going to go that way as well. But yeah, if you're a Democrat and you want to save your ass and have some kind of political future, you may want to think about maybe adjusting your view of things. And there has been talk about some possible defections from the Democratic Party, especially in the Senate. Fetterman, who's he's not going to do it, but there could be some switch to independence. What do you think, Dr.
Yeah,
Lobster?
there are a couple of Democrats who have floated the idea of leaving the party. And it's because, again, they have no concrete leadership. They have no real purpose anymore. And watching the Senate confirmations, all I kept thinking of was when they said prior to the election, that Trump doesn't like strong women. Really? Kristi Noem, Tulsi Gabbard, Pam Bondi. These women wiped the floor with the Democratic committee members.
You know something? It's also kind of interesting for me, someone my age. I just have to say, it used to be, like Saturday Night Live, all the hot chicks were liberal, right? And
Not
you had the
anymore.
stereotypical. It's not even close. Like you said, Rosa DeLaura, Pocahontas. These strong. By the way, you have it. Being a strong woman is attractive. They're physically attractive. These women, and they're their personality is attractive. Their accomplishments, the way they present themselves, are all very attractive. They're not ranting like a lunatic.
No, and it's more than just a physical attractiveness, because
That's what I'm
and it's
saying.
and
Yeah.
it's also more than just age, because the ones we've been mentioning are relatively young for politicians. But if you take a look at Susie Wiles, Trump's chief of staff, my God, I don't think there's anything this woman can't do. She is absolutely amazing. She's the first female chief of staff in U.S. history, and she can blow the doors off of any man in Washington.
No question. But isn't it really a bigger issue, Dr. Lopkin, that the Democrats, they just got no arrows in their quiver? It's just it. It's like throwing shit against the wall. You got nothing.
Yeah, no,
Your
you've
thoughts?
got the squad members yelling like
On.
absolute insane people. I mean, you've got Chuck Schumer, as we just said, with the beer and the guacamole. You've got Chris Murphy, who's yelling at the top of
A
his lungs
rising star.
because he thinks he's going to run for president in 4 years. Let me tell you, we've seen Connecticut Democrats try to run for president. They never get more than the margin of error because they're too liberal for the rest of the country. And
You know
and
what's really interesting about that, though? No, one little quick point. It really shocks me because I'm a person. Everyone has a lot. I have more than my share of faults, but I think I'm realistic in terms of assessing my talent as it relates to what I strive for and have strived for in the past. Chris Murphy, average IQ on a good day. I'm being honest. I'm not making a joke. To think, and like Kamala Harris, you're fit for president. Like, what are you thinking about?
well, that's the
Chris
thing.
Murphy?
That's one of the reasons that Murphy is ranting the way he is. Murphy thought he was going to be a high-ranking official in the Harris administration, which of course was blown out of the water. But let's take a good look at Chris Murphy the person. In the last 6 months, his wife is divorcing him. He
I didn't know
default
that.
Yes, he defaulted on his mortgage.
Yes, he did.
He moved his kids to Washington and put them in private school because the Department of Education's doing such a bang up job.
Yo,
He
amazing.
he is a complete failure as a person, and now he thinks he's going to move up politically. Well, I actually said this the other day about AOC, but quite frankly, more and more of the Democrats are fitting into this image. But if you take a look at them, the more they talk, the more they're coming off like they're trying to kill Batman. It's like they look like the Joker. They're coming off
Yeah, no,
as these
absolutely.
insane villains.
It's just amazing. Like you look at Murphy, Chris Murphy. He comes from Connecticut. Yet he was one of only 30 or 20 something Senate Democrats who he voted to embargo aid right at the critical moment to Israel. Okay. And I think your point is well founded. He did that because he thought it would help him be a big part of the upcoming Harris administration. And just one more thought. I want your thoughts on this. I think one of the greatest moments at the confirmation hearings when Bernie, the self-hating Jew, but had nothing to do with that, was blown out of the water by RFK about
Oh, yes.
contributions. You couldn't make that up. He's
No,
done. No, I need your. It's basically
actually,
completely self-serving.
I
I think
don't
he's
think
done.
I don't think Bernie's done because of a couple of things
Okay.
that came out in the last few days. Bernie is making a last-minute ditch to save himself. Bernie is now working with several Republicans on bipartisan bills to protect people from runaway credit card interest, to protect them against inflation. He's actually working with DOGE.
Well, because he's scared shitless. Because he
Yeah,
knows
he
his
realized
first shtick. No, he knows his first shtick is over. Unlike AOC and Chris Murphy, it's over.
he
He
needs to
needs to address. Yeah,
reinvent
look at those
himself.
issues. Yeah, exactly. Yes, you're 100% correct. Um, and speaking of Connecticut Democrats, you have Ned Lamont in the middle of all these very popular deportations. And at this point, the worst of the worst, what does he do? So, how many companies major companies have relocated to Connecticut, Dr. Lopkin?
That would be
How
none.
about zero?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I say negative. How do you like that? Because I actually know companies that when you drive by, you think, oh, that's their headquarters. Companies like Stanley Black and Decker, in appearance only. I hate to break it to you,
Well,
but so no company. Go
we
ahead.
have had a lot of companies leaving Connecticut over the past
That's what I'm
10
saying.
years. Yeah, General Electric, Pitney Bowes moved people out. A lot of the defense contractors, they may
Gone.
still have headquarters here, but they've moved most of their people out. So, yeah,
Yes, yes. I
businesses
love
are
what you said. I love that
fleeing.
you. Yeah, I love that you said people because yes. So you go to those companies and they still have they knock the buildings down. Hello, you go in there. You could. Why don't you start your corporate headquarters? You could probably get an office for like $100 a month. There's no one there. So anyway, I think it's funny. So yes, so when companies there hasn't been a major company relocate to Connecticut, I would say in the last 40 years. Okay, but what is Ned Lamont? He says the illegals are welcome in Connecticut. So we got no revenue coming in from corporate entities, but he invited um, people that would essentially draw uh, the little money that we have. We're
Yeah,
already a welfare state.
it's absolutely amazing. And quite frankly, it doesn't mean a thing because every state has been saying, every deep blue state has been saying, yes, we are going to protect illegal immigrants. Well, guess what? One of the things, and I love that they yell about this on social media all the time. Yeah, illegal immigrants have rights and they can't be taken away without a duly prepared warrant. Guess what? Everyone, every single immigrant that has been deported by the Trump administration, they have had a warrant. And as long as they've got that warrant, there is nothing a sanctuary city or state can do because federal law supersedes state
Yes,
law in this.
the act was actually McCulloch versus Maryland, and that is exactly right, the good doctor. It is in the Constitution. It's not something that Trump just came up with. It is a fact. So very interesting. Now, you talk about the first 2 weeks. I think it's really interesting. We pulled out of the climate accord, which is a bunch of crap, and then Davos, a bunch of elitist, what's his name, the Heinz guy, right? Just a bunch of idiots that basically Europeans that before they put their stamp on things, the EU is actually an economic powerhouse. 30 years later, I think they're about the size of California. And basically, Trump gave them the big middle finger, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And it is funny because for years, conspiracy theorists have been saying, well, the folks at Davos are the ones who are controlling the world, and they're the ones that are secretly behind all of these things. Well, guess what? Trump just outed the folks at Davos as being feckless morons with no power whatsoever.
Well done, Dr. Lopkin. What it is a high priced Chardonnay and sushi party. And they get to talk about how brilliant they are. And that's essentially it. But morons in the EU take what they say seriously. That's the real problem. And I'm sure Biden and all his minions did as well. So quite interesting. And I also thought in the last 2 weeks, as Trump gets things putting the rubber on the road, so to speak, some departments might be excommunicated, right? We'll talk about this a little later. We have the U.S. Aid Department. We'll talk about that. But also, some people have talked about it in the past, but it looks like it's going to happen. The Department of Education. I think our whole education system will crumble if they go. I mean, the job they've done, I think they did a heck of a job. How do you like that, Dr. Lopkin? Because I don't think you could do the job they did. How do you go in 1978 when they were formed from the ranked third in most educational metrics to either 27th or 30th? Who really gives a shit? I mean, I don't think you could do it. You're a smart guy. I really don't think you could do it over
Well,
a 45-year period.
see,
I don't think you could.
here's the problem. You're looking at the wrong metric. The Department of Education was never meant to educate our students. That's not their purpose. The purpose of the Department of Education has been to funnel money to the teachers unions, who in turn funded Democratic campaigns.
Gee, God, I just don't believe it, Lopkin. How could that possibly be? I mean, God, could it be even like what actually was going on with the U.S. aid?
Yeah,
Shell companies, essentially?
US
No, that's impossible,
US
Lopkin.
aid was the same thing. These were bureaucratic organizations that did not answer to anybody, and they funneled money. You've mentioned US aid. Well, they've made a big deal on the news about some of the more ridiculous expenditures that US aid has done. $35,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru, millions of
Hmm.
dollars to put Sesame Street in Iran. You know,
Nice.
but aside from these ridiculous ones that made the headlines, there are a couple of other expenditures that are very important for the people to know. $8.1 million from USAID funded Politico magazine. And in fact, since all of the US aid money has been halted, Politico announced they can't make their payroll.
Oh, shucks. Come on. What are we going to do without them? What are we going to
Four
do without them?
$4 million from US aid to the New York Times. This was basically left wing radicals buying the media. That's what US aid was about.
And also crazy shit expenditures that did nothing for America. Yeah, it was a liberal psychopathic entity funding media and initiatives that essentially were just to make them feel good. A complete waste of money. But you talk about wasting money. Go ahead.
Before we go on with this, we should give a little credit where credit is due, because this was a recent occurrence. More than likely since the mid 1970s. When US aid was created by John F. Kennedy, It was meant to streamline how we gave out foreign aid. It was meant to give out money to feed people, to get them clothing, not to support DEI and these ridiculous programs. So this was a program that was actually worthwhile in its creation that had been hijacked by the left in order to keep themselves in office.
Yeah, I think that's 100%, but I think that really points to the detrimental, how do you like that, power of the entrenched bureaucracy, because it's really, Ted Cruz said this, is that you pass bills and you think, oh, we got the XXX Act, but the bureaucrats implement it, and most of them are left leaning. They will either slow walk it or they can mutate it into what fits them better. Did you know that,
Right.
Dr.
And
Lobson?
this is actually why, going back to the Obama administration, when they were passing Obamacare, Nancy Pelosi famously said, well, we have to pass it so that we'll know what's in it. The reason
A
she
genius.
said this is because so much of the bill was left vague so that the bureaucrats could determine how to implement this. That's not the agency's job. They're not there to make policy.
Yes. Now, when we talk about the human printing press, this does tie in, Dr. Lopkin, the government accounting office. Can you talk a little bit about the money, the out of control money in 2023 that Uncle Joe and his minions
Yeah, the
racked up?
not the nonpartisan governmental accounting office found in 2023 the Biden administration spent $236 billion, which was, in their words, improperly spent or illegally spent.
There
This
you
was
go.
this was not money that was earmarked for specific programs. This was a slush fund that the Biden administration used essentially to try to buy support.
You mean Joe Biden would be corrupt in any way? The guy, this is great. I got to put this in. No, this is great. Greg Kelly, I love this guy. He had a great little expose, let's just say, and he had the photograph of Uncle Joe's house in 1971. It was something you'd get right out of college or something,
Yep.
whatever. And now he just magically has three beach houses in Delaware.
And
Gee, not that
and
much money. I mean, not that much.
no, but I
Whatever. Go ahead.
think this is the important factor that everybody has to remember is that these are the expenditures that Chris Murphy is trying to keep people from finding out about, that the squad is
Hmm.
trying to keep people from finding out about. And I mean, Elon Musk had a great line about these people who are trying to stop DOGE from doing their job. And he said point blank, they don't stand a chance because we're working 120 hours a week and they are maybe working 40.
And let's not also, you have to put in the calculation. You're dealing with Elon Musk, a genius, and his minions, young people that are sleeping basically
Oh, well,
in some of these buildings, crushing it against Chris Murphy, a
well,
boy genius.
more than Chris Murphy was absolutely hysterical in the House Oversight Committee this morning. The ranking Democrat said that Elon Musk has no business doing this. Now, I'll get back to the Oversight Committee in a moment, but it is important to realize that all of these people yelling that Musk has no right to be doing this. No, he was chosen by the president of the United States as an de facto auditor because you do not hire an auditor that is within the system. You need somebody outside. More importantly, Musk does not make any decisions. He looks at all of this data. His team looks at all of this data. they say, oh, this is what we found. Then they go to Donald Trump and say, this is what we found. You might want to consider such and such. And Trump either does or doesn't. But Trump is the one making these decisions. And that is exactly what the American people elected him to do. So all of this
100%.
bullshit that the Democrats are yelling that it's an unelected shadow government doesn't hold water. Now, getting back to the
I
House
agree.
Oversight
Good.
Committee, though, this morning, the ranking Democrat said they want to subpoena Elon Musk to appear in front of the committee and answer their questions. And I'm not even making this up. The Republicans started laughing because they know Elon Musk by himself is smarter than every Democrat on that committee. He would run circles around these people.
It would be must see TV. It would actually increase C SPAN's ratings from 10 people to near World Series levels. How do you like
When
that?
when
Very
when
interesting,
when
yes.
that footage aired this morning, Dana Perino interjected on Fox and said, "Oh my God, I want to see that happen. Get me some popcorn."
Oh God, yeah, we'd have the popcorn butter and maybe a couple Bud Lights. It would be must see TV with the boy and girl geniuses. And speaking of the first 2 weeks, sadly, don't cry. U.S. withdraws from the climate accords. Oh well, and basically also is going to ratchet up pressure on the mullahs in Iran. And Trump came out with a statement that if they harm him or kill him, that they will be obliterated. And there's a lot of rebuttal that the mullahs are starting to shit themselves. Your thoughts
It
after
wouldn't
a 4 year
it
vacation?
wouldn't surprise me. They were getting away with murder for 4 years. Meanwhile, Trump came in and he reinstated his campaign of maximum pressure that Biden got rid of. I don't remember if it was day 1, but it was certainly week 1.
Pretty close.
Um so now Iran is going to have their feet held to the fire. And before anybody starts yelling, oh, well, Trump doesn't care about the Iranians. No, he has actually been taking steps to try to help the Iranian people while putting maximum pressure on their government.
Fantastic. And speaking of, let's just say, art of the deal moves, comment on what a lot of uninformed liberals and people in the media laughing about Trump's comments about relocating Gazans, Palestinians living in Gaza and turning it into a new Riviera on the Mediterranean. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, it's not a bad deal, except for the relocation part. We don't have to relocate anybody. We could do that, as it is. But from somebody who was actually in the room when Trump said this, speaking on the condition of anonymity, he said, this is an opening salvo in negotiations to bring the countries of the Middle East to the table because nobody has ever considered doing something like this. And by making them think outside the box, Trump expects them to come and negotiate so that something can actually get done. It's the same thing he's doing with the Canadian and Mexican tariffs, which, by the way, didn't even have to go into effect in the Mexican and Canadian leaders caved. So that's what this is. It is all out of the art of the deal.
No question. Again, the media, the liberals are playing checkers. He's playing chess. And speaking of the media, don't cry. Don't cry for me, Argentina. Jim Costa is leaving CNN. Oh
Yes,
God, what's going to
Jim
happen?
Jim
And with
Jim
that,
Acosta
the yeah, go ahead.
Jim Acosta threw a temper tantrum because CNN decided to overhaul their schedule and they were going to stick him in the middle of the night. And he just went, "No, I'm leaving. I'm not putting up with this." And CNN went, "Bye-bye."
Goodbye. And he had that self-righteous send-off. Yes, like he's the arbitrator of the truth and pure news. I don't think he'll land anywhere. I really don't. What's the point?
Well, one, I don't think he'll
Maybe
let.
MSNBC.
That's really his only place to go. The fact of the matter is, with the exception of Fox News and the rising ratings of News Nation, which 2 years ago
Yes.
nobody even heard of,
Nope.
television news is a thing of the past. And
Yes.
that's why CNN did what they're doing. They're not focusing on linear television anymore. They're focusing on CNN on Max and CNN streaming because that's where people are getting their news now.
100% correct. And well, you talk about Fox. Isn't it interesting that the Faulkner focus is beating the View? But
Yes, for the,
soon, wait, hold on. Before you say something, before not too long, I believe cable knitting with Aunt Martha on cable access could be beating the View soon. Go ahead.
it is possible, and that actually does have more to do with the views ratings dropping than the Faulkner focus rising. The Faulkner focus has always been a strong performer on Fox. It's still a strong performer, but people have suddenly realized, wait a minute, the View has been lying to us for years, and they're abandoning the View in droves.
Yes, and then also no one likes to hear you want. And by the way, when it first started with Barbara Walters, not that I watched it, but I think it was somewhat interesting. Divergence of opinion. No one wants to hear cackling idiots talking about the same shit every day. And by the way, not exactly Mensa candidates. I forgot Sonny Hurston or something thought that the eclipse was a result of global warming, and then you have Whoopi Goldberg, who's a recipient of no education, an eighth grade dropout. Yep, but they're telling me all about what to think. Real
Yeah,
geniuses.
and you bring up a good point because when the View started, and I don't know how many people even know that the View is actually part of ABC News, and the reason it's part of ABC News is because the show was created by Barbara Walters, and when it started out, it discussed issues, and it had a team of 5 women that had divergent opinions, but they all focused on facts. They had intelligent debates. Well, now any semblance of intelligence has gone out the window. If you don't agree with their far left radical
Psychotic.
opinions, then they, and it is really funny when they've had more and more guests actually coming on. You had Tim Scott several months ago. You had J.D. Vance. You had Matthew McConaughey. And these guests are wiping the floor with the 5 of them.
Well, I think my cat Carl might be able to do that. Um, in closing, you look at the whirlwind of change that's been going on over the last 2 weeks. You have Millie Cyrus, General Milley, right? Mark Milley. He may be broken down to a private. How funny would that be? At the same time, where Army couldn't recruit squirrels, now applications are skyrocketing. Digest those two as we
Yeah,
conclude.
since the Trump election, recruitment by the armed forces is skyrocketing because once again, people are proud to say they serve the American people. Once Donald Trump got rid of the DEI in the military, you saw people say, oh, okay, yes, I'm in. And these
Plus,
are
wait, hold on,
highly
just real quick,
qualified
is
people.
yes, but also I think it's also you are 100% correct. I just want to interject. Sorry about that. It's also I think pride overall in America is surging.
Yes, it is. And we're seeing this. You know, I think we mentioned this 2 weeks ago. Donald Trump announced a massive AI project. Contrast this to Biden's massive CHIPS Act. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The CHIPS Act took American taxpayer money, gave it to companies, and so far has not generated anything. This is 2 years
Shocking.
in. Donald Trump announced the AI initiative, no taxpayer money. This was private money coming in and investing in the United States. That's the difference. Nobody wanted to invest in the United States under the Biden administration.
Yes, I agree with that. And yet another dagger in the heart of the Democratic Party because it's not looking good. But what do you think of Mark Milley? I mean, basically, some of the things he was doing was, quote, close, if not, in fact, treasonous. Backdoor channel to China? Really?
Well, actually, I'm not going to say anything about a backdoor channel to China because we are supposed to have backdoor channels to other countries, especially our adversaries, because there are things the diplomats cannot say, things the diplomats cannot put on the table, that if we use back channels, we can get things done. That's how things got done when Hamas gave up the hostages. It's how the Reagan administration, before they took office, got Iran to release our hostages, was backdoor channels. So I'm not going to complain that we had backdoor channels. We need these. But the pullout of Afghanistan was treasonous. The fact that the Mexican drug cartels essentially took over our southern border. This is why Miley is standing a good chance of being demoted. He's already had his security clearance revoked, along with a number of intelligence officials. So yes, it would
Yep.
not surprise me for them to say, you know what? You sold this country out. We're revoking your generalship.
Love it. Well, Dr. Lopkin, I'm glad, obviously, it's good to be back. I'm glad you're feeling better. We'll do it again next week. It's certainly an eventful 2 weeks.
It's been an eventful 2 weeks. It's been an eventful week. It's been an eventful 24 hours. I got to tell you, the White House press corps is having a hard time keeping up with Trump after 4 years of not having to do anything. We literally had 3 press conferences yesterday. That's how much
Yes,
is
done by
going
an
on.
actual president.
Yes, 2 by the president and 1 by the press secretary. That is how much is going on right now, and we are here to cover it, and we want to hear what you think of what's going on. So go to xvadio.com/connect. Let us know what you're thinking. You can also go to the Carnivore Radio Facebook page, message us, let us know your opinions on this whirlwind of activity. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. See you next week.
We'll see you then.